Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Encounter Mercy podcast.
You're very energetic all of a sudden.
It's the second recording of the day. I'm always more energetic on the second one. You can always tell if it's the first or the second recording. We usually record two at a time.
Yeah.
And you can always tell which one's the second one, I think, based on how I act.
I think it's between the both of us, honestly.
I have to get warmed up.
Yeah.
I have to get warmed up, especially today's a Saturday.
Yeah.
It's different. It kind of threw us off a little bit.
Normally
we record
not being
on
at
Tuesdays.
Night. Yeah.
Tuesday nights, it's an afternoon. I couldn't wait to grab a beer finally. It's past the time where I don't feel like I'm an alcoholic anymore.
Well, and all the kids are awake upstairs, as you can hear from the...
Yeah, we can be a little louder.
And then they're making noise too, so...
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So today, we have kind of a long episode. I think it's going to be a long episode today. We'll see how it kind of pans out. But originally, the title of this episode we were thinking was going to be called How to Stay Faithful to God in an Ever Increasingly Secular Society. That's a really long name. So I think we just decided to call this one Martyrdom.
Yeah.
Because as you're going to find, we're going to talk a lot about martyrdom today. And there have been a lot of people, canonized saints as well as saints in heaven now that the church has not officially canonized, that have died for the faith. And it's through what they have done that gives us strength when we come against some of these very strong secular forces out there that tell us that we can't worship the way we want to, or limit some of what we can do in public spaces.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about how to be able to navigate the best way through some of these secular things out there, some of the things that you should do and should not do, as well as talk about some of the martyrs that have come before us who have literally died for our faith.
I think it's a really good way to split up our episode today. The first half is going to be talking about how we see that in our own lives right now,
sure,
and some of the difficulties that maybe between the two of us, and then in general as a society that we see. And then in our second half, when we come back from our our break, we'll then talk more about some of the saints.
Sounds good to me. So we all know that it happens. For over 2,000 years now, Catholics, Christians have been persecuted in whatever society that they happen to find themselves in. And before that, it was the Jews. The Jews have always been persecuted, and they still are today.
Yeah.
And so I think wherever God's people are, there's always going to be people who hate them. And because the devil is very strong, and he works through a lot of the things that you see going on in societies. And we're going to talk again. We'll talk a little bit about that later from the history standpoint. But for now, let's look at Catholics being accused of hate speech, or Christians, anyone being accused of hate speech just for speaking biblical truths.
Right.
You literally see it all the time, especially the news will always point it out.
I think the best place that we can start with that is the March for Life. First, automatically is an anti-abortion rally. When first off, it's not just a rally, and it's not just anti-abortion. We're talking about all attacks on life. That means murder, that means suicide, that means abortion, that means the death penalty. I mean, the list goes on. It's not just abortion. That's the one that we're focusing on so heavily because, of course, it is such we have the right to life. That's the whole point of it.
Yeah. And
it's about life. And so where does life begin? At conception. And so you hear the news media, as you alluded to. The news media says that it is only a few hundred people and that they're protesting abortion, when in reality it's hundreds of thousands of people, and it's people that are protesting the attack on life. Mm-hmm. And so the society is telling us, and not only society, but the news media, but they're telling us that we don't matter. And they're not focusing the attention on the truth that's there.
Yeah, that's definitely one way. Some states pretty much have forced Catholic charities out of adoption due to their stances on same-sex couples, as well as unmarried couples that are cohabitating to be able to adopt children. And that's very unfortunate because these charities usually put these kids into good homes who will be raised in a way that one is against the secular society that is only increasingly gets worse, and two gives them the values. You're usually going to be raised in a Christian household,
right? Where
you have values,
right? And
you're going to contribute to society, and you're going to do all these things, and these kids are going to have good lives,
right?
So it's unfortunate to see.
You have the Little Sisters of the Poor that were being forced to provide contraception and abortifacients and birth control to their staff and their employees because of the HHS mandate.
Yeah, that was a big one.
That was a huge one. That was a huge one. We were calling our representatives and everybody about that because we're not going to support that as a church. We are not going to support that.
No.
And so you see how they're attacking a religious organization who is doing amazing work for their community, and they're going to tell them that you have to violate your conscience because we want you to just give this away.
And honestly, they'd rather see them just go away than
to
continue supporting their communities.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of really upsets me is, you'd rather see them just disappear completely.
That's right.
Than to continue to actually help people. And these are governments. A lot of the times there's your local governments, federal governments, state governments that are doing these things. And now they're going to have to take on the burden of providing these services. What does that mean? They're going to have to raise tax dollars.
Yeah.
And if you've ever been to the DMV, I think that explains everything right there.
Yeah.
You just don't get that. You don't get that support. You don't get the efficiencies that go along with that, from the monetary side all the way to, let's look at Puerto Rico.
Exactly.
They just found that warehouse full of all those supplies from that hurricane last year.
And then you have, not to get political, but then you have the mayor who's yelling because she's not getting the support when it was literally right there.
Yep. Yeah.
So you have this attack on our faith, and as Catholic Christians, we have this attack on our faith where we don't get to have a voice, and that's a real problem because as a priest, I'm not allowed to speak on anything that might happen to be political. Mm-hmm. Stay out of my bedroom, Father. Well, no, there's a reason why we're talking about contraception. There's a reason why we're talking about this kind of stuff.
Yes,
it plays into this attack on our Christian faith, our belief, and our morals. And so you have all of these situations, all of these problems, and people don't want to pay attention to it. And instead they say, you stay out of my business, you stay out of my business, don't you come judging me.
Yeah, I'm just, and just show up to Mass every once a week, and if that, and tell you what you need to do as a priest in this parish to make my life more fun while I'm here. Yeah, that's gotta be rough.
So, you have this attack on the faithful. You have this attack, and it's not just the priests. It's on the laity as well, because there are laity that speak the truth. And I'm not saying lady, I'm saying laity.
Laity.
I sometimes don't know.
The lady is speaking the truth.
The lady, yes, but the laity can be out there speaking the truth and proclaiming it. And there's a lot of very faithful people in our pews.
There certainly are.
But there's also a lot of very faithful people in our pews that are also terrified.
Yes.
And so one of the things is that if you find that you're terrified to talk about the truth, that's okay. But we want you to get out of that comfort zone.
Yeah.
The Lord is calling you out of that comfort zone right now. And it's because we all need to speak the truth. If it's only coming from the priest, that's not enough. Because what we say at the Mass, what I say in my homily, needs to be changing your life so that you can proclaim the truth. Because you're going to experience people in your lives that I will never meet.
And Father Dan Hoffman, when he was here a couple of weeks ago, said that he said that greatly whenever he talked about how it used to be where families would get the gospel and then you literally live it out all week long.
Yeah.
Until the next gospel, and continue to live out that in our daily lives. And so I guess really the last attack that I just kind of want to bring up real quick before, and this one can be very dangerous for people like us and for really anyone who has a presence online. is the cancel culture is on the rise.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't have to be online. You see speakers.
Yes.
You see pro-life speakers. You see Christian speakers. You see all sorts of speakers who have a view that goes against society's norm.
Yep.
And they get canceled. Whether that's their show gets canceled, whether that's Facebook shuts down their site, or YouTube shuts down their site, or blocks some of their content. It's something that I'm afraid of is going to continue to happen. It's only going to get worse.
Yeah, and we just saw it happen to another Catholic podcast.
Yeah, the Catholic Talk Show.
And they had an episode on an exorcist and talking about some of the ways the devil works, and they got removed from YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube took down that episode for whatever reason. It doesn't. I listened to that episode. There was no hate speech. It was the reason why. Literally no hate speech. There was nothing in there that seemed even controversial at all.
No.
They've had other episodes that I would have thought that would get taken down before that one. But that's going to continue to happen.
And I'm afraid that, this is not just for our podcast, but I'm afraid that's going to start happening more and more to us.
Yes. So this is why we try to own as much as our content as we can. We have our own website that you can listen to our episodes. We own we have our own server that we upload the episodes to, so we're not relying on a third party who could just shut us all down. Now, sure, all the other places you listen to podcasts could shut us down. The social media could shut us down, but you can always go to our website.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's going to continue to happen. I'm really hoping that someone out there can build a Catholic social media site that everyone can go to, that all the podcasts or videos and all the content can be there in one spot.
Yeah.
Because it's only a matter of time.
It needs to be more than just like, with EWTN's doing a great job, but somewhere where we can't just go on their website and add our podcast.
No.
We need to be affiliates of theirs.
Now, if you're listening, EWTN, and you want us on, reach out, because we're interested in anything. I'm not schlepping for that, but
I don't know. It'd be kind of cool. But the point is that somewhere where you can submit your podcast, and even if it's goes through a board, goes through a group of people that have to approve it. Still, there's nothing like that in our Catholic verse.
No.
And so we need something in our Catholic universe to be able to do that. Now, I think that you and I could probably start that, but I don't have the finances to be able to do that, or the time. So
and I don't have the ability to do that, nor the finances, nor the time.
Yeah. So we, if you want to start that project, that'd be great. But the point is that we need to also continue to utilize the methods of the world to evangelize. Another great saint, and we'll talk about all the different saints here in a few minutes, but the point is that another great saint whose canonization is being held up is Archbishop
Fulton Sheen.
Thank you. Brain just went there. Archbishop Fulton Sheen. And what did he say? We need to go into the world and we need to use their methods. And what did he do? He had a wonderful television show for years while he was alive, talking about the faith.
Yep.
He did a great job of it. So, you might be afraid because you're afraid of your friends who might say something bad about you, or you're afraid of someone coming along and attacking you. But we're telling you, and we're begging you now, do your best to not be afraid. It's easy. I get afraid. Sometimes I worry, oh my gosh, I said something in my homily that is slightly controversial. I wonder how many people are going to come and attack me today. But we have to be honest, and we have to follow the truth. And the truth isn't something that you and I make up. It's something that's given to us by God.
Exactly. And that makes it easier.
Much easier.
Because we don't have to make it up.
Right.
And defend why we made up these things. It's all there. So there's a couple of different things, a couple of different options, I guess, you could take or you could use when it comes to dealing with all of the atrocities that I just mentioned. And one of them is just give up.
Yeah.
We could just give up. We could just say, screw it. We're done. They don't like us. I'm going to take my ball and go home.
Yeah. And you know why that's a bad option?
Why is that?
Well, because Jesus told us we can't do that.
No. Yeah, you're right. He did. We can't do that.
Yeah. So that's going exactly opposite from what he told us to do.
Yeah. So I know it can be very easy to just want to give up. I know I've wanted to just give up instead of just talking to instead of even starting a conversation with somebody who I knew it was just going to go, it's going to go south because I know we don't agree, but I needed to talk about these things. And we're all going to find that. You don't have to give up and put up with everything that's going on in society. I know we keep talking about the Super Bowl this year, but it was just so disgusting.
I think it just hits home because there's so many people in the Catholic verse talking about it, the universe talking about it, because of the fact that
it's so normal to everybody else.
Yeah, and this is disgusting.
And if you even say that I can't even like watch this, then you're a
weird.
bigot. You're a weirdo. What's wrong with you? This is beautiful.
Yeah.
I tend to disagree.
I have to disagree as well because it's wrong. It's wrong.
So you could give up and you could just lock yourself in your house and stay away from everything that's out there. But you're going to get very lonely very quickly and be miserable, and you're going to have to answer to Jesus one day.
Yeah.
So another way is to fiercely attack the opposition.
Not a good option.
And that always, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's physical, whether it's an argument, whether it's you're writing a letter to the editor, whatever it may be, it's always the first reaction to fight back.
Yeah.
And that's, I think evolution has made that something that's in our DNA, and that's something that we just do. And you have to restrain yourself. Otherwise, it's only going to be worse for you. Mm-hmm. You know, let's look at anytime a celebrity freaks out somewhere, does it ever end good for them?
No.
Not usually. They're made fun of in the news. Everything's, it's all bad. So just imagine if, as a Christian, you go ahead and do that. Now, whatever thoughts that your opponent had of you before are now way worse, and he's going to share that with everybody else that he knows. Oh, and look at this idiot Christian right here.
Yeah.
So that's not the way to go. That's not the way to go for any argument, whether it's with your spouse or a friend or anything like that, is just viciously attack them. But I'm sure you see it all the time.
Oh, all the time. Let's attack the priest because look at how bad this priest is. We can't listen to anything he says because he made one mistake once by accidentally flipping the wrong page and reading the wrong thing. These are the stupid arguments that people have, and they turn it out, and they, as we said before, the cancel culture. Mm-hmm. You make a mistake and then people just shout down your throat. Well, we as Christians can't do that to other people either.
No.
So just because, you disagree with someone because of their stance on something, that doesn't mean you need to, first off, you don't attack them. That's not doing any good for anybody. But then the second thing is you need to pay attention to what their argument is so that you can actually argue the topic and not against a person.
Yeah, one thing that'll make you an excellent arguer, let's say, is to actually listen to what they say and not just say "nuh-uh," but actually respond with evidence. And a terrible way to respond is, well, I believe this, so I'm right.
Right. Yeah, that doesn't work. Or the church teaches this.
The church teaches this.
Why? Why does the church teach that?
And that's where we can get into apologetics, and I think that's where apologetics really shines.
Yeah.
And that's what it was created for, was for defending the faith. Let's reach back as far as we can into finding why the church takes its stance on this, and then explain it in all the different variations of why we chose this.
But in other situations, getting into apologetics on Facebook, for instance, most of the time is going to lead to something bad and to fruitless efforts. Sometimes. Not all the time, I'll agree. But a lot of the times that you're dealing with someone like that, you're dealing with a situation where someone is making an argument based on emotions or feelings.
Well, you see that all the time when it comes to, I'm going to take this outside of religion for a second, Second Amendment discussions online. Right. Something I used to follow all the time, because I thought that I was contributing by being one of those people in there to shout down the people who wanted to ban guns.
Right.
And it doesn't work.
You can't argue.
The person who wins is the person who is willing to stand by the keyboard for as long as possible.
Right.
Whoever has the last word in usually wins.
Right.
And so the only time I would say that arguing, not really arguing apologetics, but to bring up apologetics for our faith online, was one of our Instagram posts, actually.
Yeah.
About that one Bible church pastor who was teaching on the Eucharist. And I had a guy comment saying that that just that the church. I forget exactly.
It doesn't matter what church you go to. We're all worshiping the same God.
Right, that's what it was. And I had to break down that that the Catholic Church was the first and only church created by Jesus, and
Right.
I brought him along the way. It took probably half a day to do, just
Sure.
going back and forth.
And when you're talking with someone that is willing to actually listen to the apologetics and the
Yes.
reasoning, but if it's just this, if we immediately go to a emotional state or emotional reaction, it's a waste of time.
It depends on the other party. If the other party's willing to have that conversation with you, then sure, apologetics is a fantastic way to bring someone along. And you have to convince them of everything in one sitting. Like that guy left, he thanked me. He said, "This was a great conversation. You've taught me a lot, and I now kind of know the error of my ways, so to speak, for some of these things. But I still disagree on this, this, and this."
Yeah.
And that's where we ended it. And that was okay.
That's fine.
I don't have to convert him to a Catholic right then and there. It's not going to happen.
And the other thing is that you didn't allow your emotions enter into the situation and say, "Well, no, you have to believe this," or "Screw you, you're wrong."
Right.
You're not trying to change their view on it directly.
And you know where that is? You keep looking up there. Is we getting a fire?
Yeah, we need to go for a break. So actually, we need to take a break anyway. So this is a perfect opportunity. So we will be back with you in just a few moments.
All right.
We tried to take this episode twice, and we had to stop because I looked up and realized our candles were out. And I said, well, we're going to be talking about martyrs, and one was burnt at a stake, so we got to have our candles lit. And then why did we stop abruptly so randomly? It's because if you're watching the video, you can see now there's less candles lit because wax went everywhere,
literally dripping onto the floor.
So
that was a lot of. It wasn't just a drip. No, it was a steady
no, it was
stream.
a steady stream, and I
wax.
just my eyes must have got really big because you look like, what's wrong? I'm like, well, we have wax to clean up off the floor now.
I think we're going to move on here to actual martyrs, but briefly to wrap up our discussion, if the person, you don't have to convert the person right then and there to everything. You have to be willing to accept that you may not convince them on everything. You may not even convince them on one thing, but if you planted that seed in their head,
right,
that may help them think about it. And then it could take years, it could take 6 months, it could take whatever it is that they might come to see the fullness or just start to seek the truth based on that. So let's kind of wrap that one up and move on here.
Yeah.
But the right way to go about it is to follow the ones who came before us.
Yeah.
Follow the saints and what they did. Some of them were martyred. Some of them were not. But it was their witness to the truth in life that has made them saints. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Andy, and we can talk a little bit about...
Well, I mean, right off the bat, you had mentioned, and this is a very good one, is Daniel and the lion. So he's not exactly... he's not declared Saint Daniel,
right?
Because he's from the Old Testament. But the understanding is that Daniel refused to worship the idols, and by refusing to do that, he was put into this pit with the lions. Mm-hmm. Now he came out successful.
His faith in God allowed him to survive. He persevered, and but that doesn't happen to everybody.
Not everybody, Now, I would pray that we don't have to experience the death, a physical death, when it comes to our persecution.
No, I sure hope not.
But if that's the case, then we have the lives of certain saints, and specifically certain martyrs that have given their life for the faith. And so we can start off very simply with all of the apostles.
Yeah, every single one of them.
Extremely violent deaths.
Which is also going back to, I guess, apologetics, and one way I kind of describe to people on was Jesus real? Is if he wasn't, do you think these people would have died? Every single one of them would have died for a lie? I don't think so.
Right. And yes, it's not every single one, because St. John the Apostle didn't die a violent death. The story goes that he stayed with Mary until she was assumed into heaven, and then he died a natural life, or lived a natural life and died. But you have Peter, who was crucified, and they were going to put him on a cross just like Christ, and he said, I can't be crucified like my Lord. And so he was crucified upside down. So, you always see these horror movies where the cross ends up upside down. That's a sign of the devil. It's not. It's the sign of St. Peter. On the old St. Peter Cathedral School up in Erie, they used to have a cross that was upside down, and everybody said, "Oh, look, the devil's there." No, it's a sign of St. Peter. You have St. Paul, who was a Roman citizen, so he was permitted to be executed by beheading, because that's what they did. It was only non-Roman citizens that were crucified, and the crucifixion was a reminder to all of the non-Romans what would happen if they didn't follow the law of Rome. But if Rome needed to execute one of its own, they would behead because it was quicker and believed that it was better.
I think I'd rather be beheaded than crucified.
I'd rather neither, but I'd have to agree with you on that. And then, of course, Andrew, the brother of Simon Peter, was crucified on an X-shaped cross. So you have the apostles, most of whom were martyred. We could go into every single one of them and talk about their lives, but they each lived a life that caused some sort of controversy and forced them into something new.
Yep. And instead of giving up, or instead of saying, "Okay, you're going to kill me now," no, you win.
I'm done. I'll change my mind.
Yeah, I'll change my mind. I'll convert. I'll worship this idol, whatever. No, they stuck to their faith, and because of that, they lost their lives.
Yeah. Just recently, we celebrated the secular day of Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hallmark holiday.
Yeah. Saint Valentine was a bloody martyr.
Mm-hmm.
His head was chopped off. So how about that? You're celebrating love on a day when a guy's head was chopped off.
Yeah. Did you see the Instagram post?
Yeah, I did see. I see what you posted. Yes. You have Joan of Arc, the fire that we were talking about. She was burned at the stake. She was martyred because of her faith in God. And the church still holds her as a martyr and a saint. So Joan of Arc was burnt at the stake. You have St. Lawrence, who was grilled to death. And the old joke is that he said to his captors, "I'm done on this side, flip me over." So he was put on a spit and grilled.
No thanks.
You have some more modern. You have Saint Stephen. Excuse me. I'd rather go back to Saint Stephen. And Saint Stephen was stoned to death, and we see this in the Acts of the Apostles. And Paul was there. He was there as a witness. They were laying down their cloaks at Paul's feet when he was Saul, before they went and stoned Saint Stephen to death, who was what we call the proto-martyr, the first martyr of the church. And his feast day is the day right after Christmas, December 26th. So we celebrate right after the birth of our Lord. We celebrate the death of one of his first witnesses. So you have Saint Stephen. And then more modern saints, you have Maximilian Kolbe. St. Maximilian Kolbe was a priest during World War II and was in a concentration camp and offered his life. He sacrificed his life for someone else. They were the Gestapo, the Germans were going to execute a man, and he begged and pleaded, saying, "Please, I have a family, please don't do this." And so St. Maximilian Kolbe offered his life for that man's life and went to a moment, or he was starved to death, and when he wouldn't die from that, they finally executed him by a firing squad. And then, of course, also during the Holocaust, you have St. Edith Stein, who was a Jewish by birth, but became a Carmelite nun and was put into the concentration camps, and she died during that time as well, as that horrific time.
Mm-hmm. And let's not forget, just a couple of years ago, that priest in France.
Yes,
who was his throat was slit, and in an attempt to behead him while he was celebrating mass in front of people.
Right. Yeah. By Islamists.
Yeah.
So you have even people in the most recent time, or you have all those the martyrs, the Coptic martyrs that were martyred by ISIS. For their faith, because they would not give up their faith. And even two men who were not even baptized but would not deny the Christian faith. Mm-hmm. And so we have all of these examples in our lives of people that are dying, that are public to us, that are acknowledged in our world.
Yep.
But Then you also have the unacknowledged, the people that are living in secret. One of the places is communist China, where the church is not flourishing in the way that it should.
No, you have the communist regime that's basically telling the Vatican who is going to be the bishop. And so you have the public church who is controlled by communist China, and then you have the underground church who is being persecuted by the Chinese government. And so they're trying to stay underground and not be identified. And these are priests and they're lay people risking their lives so that they can celebrate Mass and that they can live out their Catholic faith the way that they are supposed to, instead of instead of bowing down to their communist regime, which is a lot like the idols.
Yeah.
It's like Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
if you feel worried, in a way, there's a good reason to be worried, is that we might be called to lay down our lives for the faith. But in the same breath, listening to this in the United States, we probably won't have to.
Yeah, let's pray to God that it never has to happen. But
sometimes we have to lay down friendships and relationships.
That's right.
For the faith, and we need to be strong in our faith. Mm-hmm. We can't allow people to say, "Well, you need to get with the times." No, the church has never needed to get with the times.
Right.
We are always following the truth, and the truth is what dictates how we should live our lives.
And as much as every time you look at the news, you see these bad things happening. You look at what's going on in Hollywood. You look at even your friends, hookup culture. You look at all these things that the devil is in everything around us, and it's all for the sake of, well, it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time, and I think it's going to be relatively soon. Now, it's going to get worse, I think, before it gets better, but it's only a matter of time until I think society is going to turn back to religion to bring order to our lives.
I would hope, because the way that we're turning now towards communism and secularism isn't going to bring anything positive with it.
No, and it never has. This has happened before.
Yeah.
And history repeats itself. We all know that. I don't think that persecution of... I shouldn't say persecution. I don't think the removal of religion the way that it's happening now is ever really works. It's different because there's a lot of the internet does a lot. There's a lot going on. So has it always been there? I don't know. It's just more in your face now that there's this active group out there, large majority, that's trying to remove people like us, people like you, from speaking your faith, from expressing your faith, from living your faith. They'd rather come into your home and tell you how to live your life.
Yeah, which is ironic.
Yes.
Which is ironic because they're telling us that
to stay out,
but they can come and tell us how to live our life. So it might be scary, it might be intimidating, but we are called to be Christians and to live out our lives in a way that continues to focus on Christ and focus on His church and focus on the truth. So each of us is called to that. How we live that out, that is between us and God. And go back to our topic on discernment a little bit in one of our recent episodes when we talk about that, because discernment is going to be key. How it is that we live out our lives and how we live out the truth of Christ. How we make that evident, right? Because we're all called to the same truth, but how we each individually live that out. I as a priest, you as a lay person, as a married lay person in particular, those out there listening, however the Lord has called you to live out your life and your vocation. So living that out is important, and paying attention to that is important. So it's going to be different for each person how we live it out, but we have a common goal and a common mission of Christ, and that is go forth into all the world and proclaim the good news.
Amen. Well, we're about 35 minutes in. This could be a quick one.
Yeah, it's all right. You've had a lot lately. If you've listened and maybe had to break our episodes up because, we had one that went well over an hour. So
well, that now we're on YouTube. Everyone who listened in audio now had to binge watch on our YouTube channel. So
yeah,
I get that. So if you have to be a martyr, be a martyr. That's what's gonna. I mean, that's what we're called to do, and you're gonna go right to heaven if you're martyred for the faith.
So have faith, and even when it's difficult, where would be the best place to die? But I think in church.
Yes.
It's sad to say, but I think, if that would have to be the case, I think that's probably the best place that, I'd want to go.
Yeah. Yeah,
So.
I think I would agree with that statement.
But let us pray that there might be peace. The psalmist says, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And why is it that we're praying for the peace of Jerusalem? Because that is the head of the church and at the time of the Jewish people. So now we pray not just for the peace of Jerusalem, but we pray for the peace in our churches, in our homes, in our hearts, in our lives.
The power of prayer is real. There's a couple of people at work that have a shirt that has it on the back. I don't know where they got them from, but it's
Grace.
It's very true though.
Grace, who is Grace? That whole thing.
Them.
That's one of theirs.
But it's true.
It is true. It is true.
true.
The power of prayer is real. We need to continue to pray and keep seeking out Christ.
Mm-hmm. It can be uncomfortable. Just know that. But don't give up. As we said, never give up. Don't viciously fight back. There are times where you're going to have to defend yourself, but do it in a tactful way.
Yeah.
There's always a better way of handling any situation. So always try to follow the footsteps of the people who preceded you. And sometimes all it is praying. Sometimes that's the answer.
So we leave that with you today. We ask that you pray for us as we pray for you. Know that you are always in our prayers, and we thank you for listening. Make sure you check us out on our website, which is
It's all you, Father Andy.
EncounterMercy.com. Hit us up there, and of course you can see us on all of our social media, and you need links for that, and that's on our website. We're not going to try to list them all here because that would waste your time and ours. So check out our website.
Hop onto our Twitters and give us a follow because we need some love.
The Twitters and the Instagrams and the Facebooks and the YouTubes.
Mm-hmm.
So hit us up, and we will see you all very soon.
God bless.